was at Duke University, it flashed either the Apple logo or the IBM logo to two randomized groups of participants.
The study found that after being subliminally exposed to the Apple logo, compared to when you've been exposed to the IBM logo, participants performed better on creative tasks.
And the argument is that Apple has been telling you this story over and over again, that Apple is the brand for hip, cool, fun, creative people.
This is the true power of brands. They can influence our behavior in ways that extend way beyond the point of sale. So, to what degree can the influence of brands wreak havoc on our ability to make rational spending decisions? This is Americus Reed. He studies identity and marketing at the University of Pennsylvania.
When I make choices about different brands, I'm choosing to create an identity. When I put that shirt on, when I put those shoes on, those jeans, that hat, someone is going to form an impression about what I'm about. So if I'm choosing Nike over Under Armour, I'm choosing a kind of different way to express affiliation with sport. The Nike thing is about performance. The Under Armour thing is about the underdog. I have to choose which of these different conceptual pathways is most consistent with where I am in my life.
And once a consumer makes that choice, their relationship with a brand can deepen to the point where they identify with the brand like family. And once you identify with a brand, it can shape the way you behave.
The three things that I think it really takes to be an effective manager are these. First of all, learn to delegate. The most important thing is you have to trust your people to do work themselves. And if you're in the business of overseeing every single decision they make, you're not going to be a very effective manager because you'll be stretched too thin, and you'll certainly never be able to rise to higher levels of management where you're overseeing dozens or hundreds or even thousands of people. So that's the first thing. The second is work hard to understand what the people underneath you do. There's this tendency to think, if I came up through one skill, as I oversee people with different skills, I'm just going to trust them to get it right. And you have to. Of course, you're not going to be able to understand what everybody on your team does all day. But if you can understand their motivations, their terminology, their way of communicating, you're going to be a lot better as a manager. And finally, this is a kind of simple thing, but have as many one-on-one meetings as you possibly can. I think one thing that there's a lot of evidence is that having one-on-one meetings, especially with your direct reports, is one of the strongest predictors of success as a manager. Big meetings aren't good. Little meetings can be very good. It's time-consuming, it's hard, but it's a thing that really correlates with success as a manager.
We constantly negotiate at work. We negotiate for higher pay, promotions, vacations, and even greater autonomy. In fact, every day we negotiate just to get our job done and to secure resources for ourselves and our teams. And yet, when we go in with the wrong mindset, with our fists up, ready to fight, we aren't as successful. You know why? Because negotiation is not about dominating. It's about crafting a relationship, and relationships thrive when we find ways to give and to take and move together in unison. And to do that, you have to be well prepared. First, do your research. Figure out whether what you're asking for is realistic. What is your aspiration? What do you want? And what will make you walk away from the table? This might seem obvious, but too many people don't think it through.
I'd recommend that you all try to get hold of English in the Southern Hemisphere by Nolan and Watts, as this provides an excellent overview of the topics that we're going to be covering in this module. It's really our primary text. It has particularly strong sections on the history of English in Australia and New Zealand, examining in some depth how the language has developed in these countries. The sections on phonology and on vocabulary will be invaluable when you're doing the written assignment, which I'm going to be telling you about in a moment once I've given you the details of a couple of other essential references.
Before farming was introduced into Scotland, people lived by hunting, fishing, and gathering wild foodstuffs. This way of life meant that they usually didn't settle permanently in one place, but were to an extent nomadic, moving about in search of a livelihood, perhaps returning to the same places at certain times of the year. It is believed that the islands of Orkney were known to these people, but so far only a few flint tools have been found to verify this. This is because coastal erosion has destroyed many ancient sites, and these may have contained relics of some of these earliest pioneering colonists.
India has downplayed the impact of U.S. plans to end New Delhi's preferential trade status that allows duty-free access to products worth $5.6 billion, saying that India has not assured the United States that it will provide equitable and reasonable access to its markets. U.S. President Donald Trump has directed the U.S. Trade Representative's office to remove India from a program that grants it preferential trade treatment. In 2017, India was the biggest beneficiary of the Generalized System of Preferences, which lowers duties on exports from about 120 developing countries. The Indian Commerce Secretary told reporters in New Delhi that India has no plans to impose retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods.
To enjoy a harmonious union with someone, we should ensure that we have plenty of sources of excitement, reassurance, and stimulation outside of them. When we hit problems, we should be able to lean on other supports. The demand that another person compensate us for all that's alarming, wearing, or deficient in our lives is a mechanism for systematically destroying any relationship. Our conflicts and disappointments will at once feel more manageable when we stop asking our partner to function always as our long-lost other half. The more we can survive without a relationship, the greater will be that relationship's chances of survival and fulfillment. We will truly give love a chance when we stop believing that it can single-handedly save us.
I hate the sight of blood. Looking at it makes me go all weak at the knees. I can't even look at my own blood. I don't know why. The thing I hate most is giving blood for a medical check. I fainted once after I saw my blood in a small bottle. If I have a nosebleed, I have to sit down for 30 minutes before I feel better. It's impossible for me to watch operations on TV. I wish I could donate blood to others. I can't. I know giving blood is really important, but I'm not brave enough. One thing about blood I do find interesting is blood types. I think your blood type can affect your personality. I know that in some countries, people with blood type A would not be a good romantic match for someone with blood type O.
Land animals move easily through air because air does not slow them down. Sea creatures, on the other hand, have to move through water, which is hundreds of times thicker than air. A sea animal has to push itself through water in order to move. Sea animals use many different ways to swim, creep, or glide through water. Fish are able to swim by bending their bodies into waves. They have flattened fins and tails that push against the water like oar blades, converting their body waves into forward movement. The size of a fish's tail contributes to its swimming speed. Small tail fins are found in slow swimmers like the eel. The medium-sized tail of the bass is linked with a medium to fast swimming speed. Long, pointed tail lobes like those on the marlin are found only on fast.
I first heard about the ozone layer about 20 years ago. I was still in school. I thought it was interesting, but I didn't take it seriously. It was a bit like science fiction. I mean, how could there be a giant hole in the atmosphere? Over the years, more and more scientists spoke about the ozone layer. Global warming became a serious issue. Important people like Al Gore made movies about it. We all know today that the thinning ozone layer is perhaps the most serious crisis we face. Even though many people have changed their lifestyles, we are still damaging the ozone layer. We need to do something really drastic to stop this. We all need to stop driving cars and stop using
The food and beverage industry spend more than $10 billion a year in the U.S. to market their products to children, and it's money well spent for them. By age 2, children may already harbor preferences for certain brands, and kids under 6 can often associate brands with specific products, such as McDonald's. Here's how powerful the McDonald's brand is, according to a study just published in the August issue of the journal Archives of Pediatric and Adolescent Medicine. Preschool kids were given the exact same food in either unmarked packages or in McDonald's packaging, but the kids, all between 3 and 5 years old, said they liked the taste better when the food looked like it was from McDonald's. One of the foods tested was carrots.
What's up, Doc?
What's up is that the kids said they liked, quote, McDonald's carrots, end quote, better than just plain carrots by more than 2 to 1. And the more TV sets in a kid's home, the more likely he or she was to prefer the food in McDonald's bags.
Open a newspaper any day of the week and you're likely to read about a promising new treatment for one disease or another. But according to a study published in the September 5th issue of Science, it can take decades for those cures to make it to the clinic. Researchers from the US and Greece combed through the scientific literature to see how long it actually takes for compounds that look good in a laboratory to get through clinical trials and get used on patients. The scientists focused their attention on a handful of interventions that were widely hailed as being clinically effective. And they found that for the average drug, the time that elapsed between its initial discovery and the first paper to show its clinical effectiveness was about 24 years. Some drugs moved much faster. One of the protease inhibitors used to treat HIV made it from patenting through clinical trials in only 4 years. Maybe that's because the team studying that drug included experts in both basic and clinical sciences. The researchers say that such multidisciplinary efforts could help future treatments get to the clinic sooner. In the meantime, they note, scientists should avoid making promises about quick cures.
Happy New Year! And if you've been away from work for a few days, you deserve some time off. After all, you've traveled far, even if you just stayed at home. According to NASA, Just by being on the planet Earth in the last year, you zipped about 584 million miles around the sun at an average speed of about 67,000 miles per hour. Hey, I wasn't speeding in my inertial reference frame. Of course, the trip was not a perfect circle. As Kepler showed, the Earth's orbit is an ellipse, with the sun at one of the two focal points. He also figured out the planet goes faster when it's at perihelion, nearer the sun, than when it's at aphelion, its furthest distance, which would explain why summer seems to zip by, except that the seasons are a function of the tilt of the Earth's axis, not its different distances from the sun. And the Earth rotated 365.25 times during its sweep around the sun. The trip took 8,766 hours, or 525,960 minutes, or 31,557,600 seconds.
Watching television can be very educational for children. The government has to do more to promote agriculture. The art course has been canceled due to the new policy.